Mama, forgive me. I was ashamed of you, of your scars, but you saved me, Mama. Forgive me.
Once upon a time, Mr. John was an average but successful man in the city. Not wealthy, but comfortable enough to live a decent life. He owned a small hardware shop in the city, which he had grown steadily through hard work and discipline. He was known for his honesty, and though his life was simple, he took pride in providing for himself and those around him. One evening, at a friend's wedding, Mr. John met Elizabeth, a graceful and kind-hearted lady. Elizabeth's warm smile and intelligent conversation immediately caught his attention. Their friendship blossomed quickly, and within a year, John asked for her hand in marriage. Their wedding was modest but joyful celebration, attended by families, friends, and neighbors who admired their union. For the first 2 years of their marriage, John and Elizabeth focused on building a peaceful home together. They prayed, worked hard, and supported each other through everyday struggles. Still, there was one thing they longed for: a child. Each month, Elizabeth waited hopefully, and when nothing happened, she encouraged herself with faith and patience. John, ever the supportive husband, reassured her, saying, "Our time will come. Let us just keep trusting God." Finally, after 2 years, Elizabeth conceived. The news brought so much happiness to their home. 9 months later, Elizabeth gave birth to a healthy baby boy they named Alexander. After Alex was born, life seemed to shine brighter for Mr. John and his little family. His joy gave him new motivation and energy, and he threw himself into his hardware business with even greater dedication. Customers loved his honesty and cheerful spirit, and before long, the shop grew larger, attracting more people from neighboring towns. At home, Elizabeth fully embraced her role as a devoted wife and mother. She woke up early every morning, swept and cleaned the house until it sparkled, washed the clothes with care, and prepared delicious meals for her husband. When John returned home from work, tired but happy, Elizabeth was always there to welcome him with a smile. She served him his meal with respect and love. Their home became a place of peace and harmony. He felt deeply grateful for his growing business, for a humble, supportive wife who cared for him with all her heart, and for the blessing of fatherhood. It was a quiet evening in the city. The faint horn of passing cars and the distant sound of generators filled the air. In their small but cozy apartment, Mrs. Elizabeth was in the kitchen preparing dinner. The aroma of boiling stew filled the air, and the soft light from the overhead bulb cast warm shadows on their tiled floor. Alex, now a plumpy little toddler, had finally dozed off after playing all afternoon. He lay on the bed in their room, wrapped in a small blanket, his tiny fist coiled under his cheek. Elizabeth stirred the pot. She reached out for the salt and found the container completely empty. "Oh no," she sighed, shaking the bottle just when the stew is almost ready. She glanced at the bedroom door. Alice was still asleep. Then she grabbed her purse. The nearest convenience shop was just across the street, so she locked the door and quickly went out, planning to be back in less than 5 minutes. As she crossed the busy road, she suddenly heard a deafening boom, a sound like a gas explosion, followed by people screaming. She turned sharply towards her apartment block and froze. Thick black smoke was already billowing from the neighbor's flat downstairs. "Jesus," she gasped, dropping the small bag of salt she had just bought. Within seconds, the fire began to spread rapidly, flames licking the balcony rails, smoke coiling towards the sky. The city streets erupted in chaos. Cars horned as drivers stopped. Neighbors rushed out shouting, some recording videos on their phones, while others screamed for help. She ran across the road, dodging honking cars, her hands shaking. "Please help me. My baby is inside," she screamed to anyone who could listen. Neighbors tried to break down doors, Others grabbed buckets of water from nearby shops, but the fire was spreading too fast. The smell of burning plastic and wood filled the air, making Elizabeth cough as tears streamed down her face. Her only thought was to get inside, to reach Alex before the smoke could choke him. Alex, Alex is inside, Mrs. Elizabeth screamed with all the strength in her lungs, her voice rising above the chaos. People shouted, begging her not to get in. The fire was too dangerous, but a mother's love made her fearless. She covered her nose with her scarf and kicked open the apartment door. Thick black smoke poured out, making her cough as she stormed inside. The heat was suffocating. The curtains were already burning, and the walls were glowing with fire. Alice, she cried out, her voice breaking. Through the haze, she heard a faint cry from the bedroom. Summoning all her strength, she pushed forward until she found him on the bed, still wrapped in his little blanket. Tears filled her eyes as she scooped him up, clutching him to her chest. Just as she turned to escape, a section of ceiling cracked and fell, flames flashing dangerously close. Elizabeth shaded Alice with her body and dashed through the burning living room. Sparks and embers fell on her, and a sudden burst of fire scorched the side of her face. She screamed in pain, but kept running until she burst out into the street. The neighbors gasped in relief, shouting, "She made it! The baby is alive!" But before she could say a word, Elizabeth's knee buckled, overwhelmed by smoke, pain, and exhaustion. She collapsed on the ground, still clutching Alice tightly. "Help her," one man shouted. She fainted. Two men quickly pried Alice from her arms, while women poured water on Elizabeth's face, fanning her with pieces of cardboard. A good Samaritan flagged down a taxi, and within minutes, Elizabeth and Alice were rushed to the nearest hospital. Not long after, Mr. John, who had heard the news, arrived at the scene. When he saw the burning apartment and was told his wife had been rushed to the hospital with burns, his heart pounded wildly. "My wife, my son," he muttered, clenching his chest. Before anyone could hold him, he staggered, gasped, slumped, and died, his heart giving way under the shock of the tragedy. Back at the hospital, Elizabeth slowly regained consciousness. The first thing she asked for was Alex, and when the nurse placed the baby beside her, she hugged him tightly, wept uncontrollably, and then she asked, "Where is my husband?" The nurse hesitated, then said, "Madam, we are sorry. Mr. John didn't make it. He collapsed at the fire scene." After Mr. John's burial, life became unbearable for Mrs. Elizabeth. Her face was still scarred from the fire, and she had hospital bills to pay. With no other choice, she opened her late husband's hardware shop one last time, tears running down her face as she sold every item, the tools, the shelves, even the signboard, just to settle her hospital bills and cover the burial expenses. When the shop was finally empty, she locked the door and handed the key to the landlord. Holding baby Alice on her hip, she looked at the shop one last time, whispering, "John, I tried." With nothing left in the city, she packed her few belongings and boarded a bus to the village. The ride was quiet, her heart heavy, but she told herself she had to be strong for Alex. Life in the village was not easy for Mrs. Elizabeth, but she refused to give up. With the little money she had left, she sat outside one morning, wondering how to feed Alex. Just then, her childhood friend, Mrs. Clara, came to visit. "Elizabeth," Clara said kindly, sitting beside her, "you can't just sit and cry forever. You need something small to keep you going. Let's start you with roasted corn. It is the season, and people will buy." Elizabeth hesitated, but nodded. With Clara's help, they gathered firewood, bought fresh corn from the market, and set up a small stand by the roadside. Soon, the sweet smell of roasted corn filled the air. Passersby stopped to buy, and by evening, Elizabeth had sold everything. She returned home smiling for the first time in weeks. "At least, Alice will eat well today," she said, hugging her son. Clara often came around with her own little boy, Daniel, who was the same age as Alice. The two children played under the shade of a mango tree while their mothers roasted and sold corn. Laughing and sharing stories, slowly Elizabeth began to heal, not just on the outside, but inside her heart as well. Alex and Daniel started school together and quickly became the smartest boys in their class. Their teachers loved them, but Alex faced a painful challenge. Children often mocked him because of his mother's burnt face. See his mother, Ojuju Kalaba, Ojuju Kalaba. They would whisper and laugh whenever Mrs. Elizabeth came to school. Alex would hold back tears, but one day he asked his mother, Mama, why do they laugh at you? Elizabeth smiled sadly, knelt down and said, My son, these scars mean I saved you from fire. Never be ashamed, be proud. From that day, Alex became even more determined. He studied harder, always taking first position. Years flew by quickly. Alex and Daniel grew into fine men, still best friends and top of their class. Together, they completed secondary school with excellent results and gained admission into the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, to study different courses. 4 years later, both graduated with honors. Their families were proud, especially Mrs. Elizabeth, who shed tears of joy, remembering how far she and Alice had gone since that tragic evening years ago. Soon after, Daniel secured admission to London for his master's degree. The whole village gathered to wish him well as he boarded a bus to the airport, promising to make them proud. Alex, on the other hand, got an offer from a big company in Lagos owned by a successful businessman, Mr. Michael. It was his first real job and he left for the city with excitement, determined to build a good life for himself and take care of his mother. Alex quickly became one of the best staff at Mr. Michael's company. His intelligence and hard work caught everyone's attention, including Jennifer, Mr. Michael's only daughter. The first time she saw Alex presenting at a meeting, she was impressed by his confidence and brilliance. Over time, Jennifer and Alex became close friends, then to lovers. Their love was genuine and strong, and soon Mr. Michael gave his blessings for them to marry. But deep inside, Alex carried a pain he had never fully recovered from. All through secondary school and even in university, some classmates mocked him whenever they saw Mrs. Elizabeth during visiting days. Guy, na your mama be that. Make I no see her for my dream. Oh. Chai, she looks scary. The curious words stayed within him. Each time Alex smiled and pretended not to care, but secretly he felt embarrassed and angry. So when Jennifer suggested inviting his mother to their wedding, Alex hesitated. He loved his mother deeply, but he couldn't bear the thought of wealthy guests whispering about his mother's car the way his classmates once did. One evening, while planning their wedding, Jennifer smiled and said, Alex, we should invite your mother. I would love to meet her. Alex went silent, memories of mockery flooding his mind. After a deep breath, he said quietly, She's dead. She died years ago. Jennifer's smile faded. Oh, Alex, I am so sorry, she whispered, squeezing his hand. Alex forced a sad nod, but inside, guilt tore at him. That night, he stared at the ceiling and muttered, Forgive me, Mama. One day, I will make this right. A week after the wedding, Alex sat alone in his office, still wearing his ring. He picked up his phone and called Daniel. Dan, Alex said quietly, I am married now. Jennifer and I had the wedding last weekend. Dan was very happy at first. Congratulations, my brother. But did Mama attend? Alex hesitated. No, I didn't tell her. I couldn't. I am still ashamed of what people might say about her scars. Daniel's heart sank. Alex, that's wrong. She suffered for you. She deserved to share in your joy. That night, Daniel told his own mother, Mrs. Clara, who was shocked and heartbroken for Elizabeth. She must know, Mrs. Clara said firmly. Daniel gave her Alex's address in Lagos and begged her to go with Mrs. Elizabeth. When Mrs. Clara gave her the address, Mrs. Elizabeth was both excited and hurt. So my son is married, she said softly, her eyes filled with tears. Yes, Mrs. Clara said gently. Didn't he tell you? But you must go and see him to know the reason. That night, Elizabeth couldn't sleep. My son had a wedding without me, she thought, staring at the ceiling. After everything I suffered to raise him, the next morning, she boarded a bus to Lagos. She sat by the window, hugging her wrapper as the bus speed past villages and towns. Throughout the journey, she was lost in thought. Tears quietly rolled down her face. She remembered the fire outbreak, the scar on her face, the death of her lovely husband, how she sold everything to bury her husband and roasted corn just to send him to school. How could he hide this from me? She asked herself over and over. But then she wiped her tears and whispered, God, let me not be bitter. Let me just see my son and bless his home. After many hours, she finally arrived at Alice's house. Her heart pounded as she knocked. Jennifer opened the door. Her smile faded when she saw Mrs. Elizabeth's scared face. She stepped back slightly, startled. Yes, who are you? Jennifer asked sharply, her tone carrying irritation. Just then, Alice came to the door. For a moment, he froze. His worst fear had come true. His mother in his house. Elizabeth's face lit up despite her tiredness. My son, she said, tears streaming. I came to bless your marriage. But Alice cut her off sharply. Who are you? What are you doing here? Elizabeth froze. Alice, it's me, your mother. Alice glanced at Jennifer, who was still staring silently, then said sharply, Go away, old woman. Stop embarrassing me here. Elizabeth staggered back, as if struck. Her lips trembled. Alice, you are ashamed of me, she whispered, her voice shaking. Mrs. Elizabeth walked away from the house, tears streaming down her face. Jennifer shut the door slowly and turned to Alice, her arms crossed. Alice, she said sharply, who was that woman? Alice looked away. Just a stranger. Jennifer's eyes narrowed. Don't lie to me. The way she looked at you, the way she called you my son. Alice, who is she? Alice snapped, raising his voice. I said, I don't know her, Jennifer. Can we just drop it? Jennifer stepped closer, angry now. Drop it? You just humiliated an old woman on our doorstep. What if she was truly your mother? Alice's jaw tightened. My mother is dead. I buried her years ago. Jennifer stared at him for a long moment, her voice softened. Are you sure, Alex? Because the way you looked at her says otherwise. But Alex turned away, his face hard, hiding the storm raging inside him. That night, while Jennifer slept, Alex sat alone on the couch, staring into space. Deep down, he knew he had just broken his mother's heart, but he didn't know it would be the last time he would ever see her alive. On her way back to the village, Mrs. Elizabeth sat quietly in the bus, tears rolling down her cheeks. So my son is married, and I wasn't even told, she thought painfully. She wished she could bless his marriage, but her heart was too broken. As she walked the last stretch of the road home, a speeding motorcycle knocked her down. Villagers rushed her to the clinic, but she died before arrival. Daniel called Alex with the sad news. Alex, your mother is dead. There was an accident, Daniel said, voice shaking. Alex sat frozen in his office, guilt crashing over him. His heart pounded and tears burned his eyes, but he quickly wiped them. When Jennifer asked what was wrong, Alex forced a weak smile. Nothing, I just have a business trip to handle. The next day, he traveled to the village, buried his mother with a heavy heart, and stood silently by her grave, whispering through tears, Mama, forgive me. You died without blessing me. When Alex returned from the village, guilt weighed on him like a shadow. Life moved on, but tragedy struck. Jennifer got pregnant and miscarried. At first, doctor assured them both were okay, but then it happened again and again. Jennifer cried for nights, holding her pillow. Alex tried to console her, but deep inside, he felt cursed, punished for denying his mother. One afternoon, Jennifer's friend Benita visited and found her sobbing. Jenny, enough is enough, Benita said softly. Join NSPPD prayer online. You need divine intervention, a solution, not tears. That night, Jennifer knelt in the living room, phone streaming the prayers. Tears ran down her face as she cried, God, show me the cause of my pain. Give me peace. Suddenly, the pastor leading the prayers called her name. Jennifer, the Lord is revealing your case. Your delay is tied to your mother-in-law. You must forgive her. Settle every pain between your husband and his mother's memory. Jennifer froze, heart pounding. Tears flowed harder. She realized Alex had lied. His mother was not dead when he married her. When Alex returned from the work, She looked at him with red eyes and said, Alex, we need to talk about your mother. When Jennifer mentioned his mother's name, Alex froze. His chest tightened, and guilt stabbed him like a knife. He sat down slowly, covering his face with his hands. Jennifer, his voice cracked. My mother, she came here once. I denied her because I was ashamed of her scars. Jennifer gasped and stepped back, tears filling her eyes. Alice, how could you? She shouted. You are wicked, heartless. That woman gave birth to you, raised you, and you denied her because of a scar. Alice wept openly. Jennifer, she got that scar the night she saved me from a fire. She almost died pulling me out of the house. That is how she was burnt. Jennifer's anger boiled over. Then you are worse than wicked, she cried. She was scarred for you, and you repaid her with shame. Alice, this is cruel. This is evil. Alice dropped to his knee, shaking. I know, I know. She died on her way back to the village after I denied her. She never blessed our marriage, and I buried her without telling you. Jennifer's tears flowed freely. You have lived in lies, Alice. The pastor said, you must ask for her forgiveness. Go to her grave, cry if you must, but make peace. Maybe that's why we are suffering. Alex nodded slowly, his face wet with tears. I will, he whispered. I will beg her until she forgives me. The next day, Alex and Jennifer traveled to the village together. The moment they arrived at his mother's grave, Alex fell to his knees, tears pouring down his face. Mama, he cried out, his voice breaking. I am sorry. I denied you. I was ashamed of the scar you got while saving my life. Forgive me, Mama. I wronged you. Jennifer knelt beside him, holding his shaking shoulders. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she sobbed. Mama Elizabeth, please forgive us. Forgive Alice. Forgive me too. Bless our marriage. We are ready to honor you. Jennifer hugged him tightly as he cried, whispering, It's okay, Alice. She has heard you. God has heard us. Months later, God answered their prayer. Jennifer became pregnant. This time, there was no complications. And 9 months later, she delivered healthy twins, a boy and a girl. When Alex held them in his arms, for the first time, tears ran freely. Mama forgave me, he said. From that day, peace and harmony returned to their home. Alex cherished Jennifer more than ever, and together, they vowed never to hide the truth from their children. Thanks for watching.